Recording in progress.
So good morning.
Information, it appears that we do have two attendees from the public. If they do have comment, I will ask them to raise their hands at this time so we know in the future. And we are ready to go.
Okay, I will now call this meeting to order of the California Unemployment Insurance Appeals Board for March 23rd, 2023. The meeting is being held in Sacramento, and I would point out all four of our board members are here despite snow, sleet, bomb cyclones. You're all here and appreciated. And we have our executive staff appearing from San Diego, where maybe the weather might be even worse. So it's also important to note this broadcast is being done on Zoom. And with that, I'm going to do the roll call of the members. So please show that Vice Chair Allen, Chair of this meeting, is present. Member Ng?
Present.
Member Kent Monning?
Present.
Member Wachowski?
Here.
The next item on our agenda is the approval of the February 2023 minutes. I will entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
We have a motion to approve. Member Ng has approved. Kent Monning?
I approve.
Member Wachowski?
Approve.
Please show that the February 23 minutes have been adopted by the board unanimously. And this part of the agenda is for the chair's report. I want to thank my fellow board members for working so hard between meetings. I'm pleased to report for this meeting that in this last month, with most of our work being done not at board meetings but daily as we work through our cases, we did a grand total of 1,212 cases this month since we last met. While the board was resolving the second level issues, our field offices were basically working and resolving thousands of cases since our last meeting. And I think it's always appropriate to thank the board members for their hard work, and also all levels of this organization, our field judges, our appeal judges, the support staff, our IT people who keep this going. For those who are laboring on CAMS to make it better, I appreciate that as well. And so just to make it clear that it's all levels of the organization are appreciated. Legal staff, you too, in case I leave you out. So with that, what I'll do is I'll ask for the reports from board members, and I'll start with Member Ng for your board reports.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I'd like to thank Vice Chair Allen for serving as our board chair, and you have handled the business of the board with exemplary speed and respectfulness. I want to thank you for that. It's a pleasure to work with you. And also echoing your normal comments, being here in person and seeing the people that make our work possible really is very gratifying. So I want to thank the staff that really does the bulk of the work between the meetings, and their work is largely unseen, but not unappreciated, and I wanted to say that I appreciate them very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Member Ng. Member Kent Monning.
Thank you, Chair Allen. I also wanted to echo appreciation for you stepping into the role of chair to help with this meeting and our board. It's much appreciated. And no report, I just wanted to commend the field office, especially staff and ALJs, noting that in February, which is a short month, they closed 32,125 cases, which is a huge amount of work. So really appreciate that. And those are all my comments for today. Thank you.
Thank you. And Member Wachowski.
Mr. Acting Chair, since this is my 70th day, will report that I have finished my training for unemployment claims, and I'm looking forward to my training for disability claims. It's still a honeymoon for me. I haven't finished the 100 days, but I can echo the comments of my fellow board members. The exemplary work of the field offices and our administrative staff has been very uplifting for me coming into the board new, and I look forward to April.
Okay. Thank you. With that, we're on number 5 of the agenda, public comment, which is public comment. I would ask our moderator, do we have any members of the public waiting to be heard?
Sir, I do have one hand raised for public comment.
Yeah, okay, yes. So with the members of the public, they may engage in comments, but the members will not be engaging in dialogue with the speaker or question and answer. Staff will be following up with the commentator if appropriate. If you're requesting follow-up from the staff of CUIB, please see today's agenda for ways to contact the CUIB and leave your contact information. And please reference your comment today so that your request can be addressed appropriately. So with that, I would ask you to please state your name, and you have 5 minutes, and we have a timekeeper on our board today that will be helping me. So please go ahead with your comments.
Good afternoon. This is Richard Miller. You've heard from me several times before. I would just ask that the board fulfill its responsibilities to all of the members of the CUIAB at all levels, which was just mentioned, whether it be the administration or the field judges and all staff, to provide guidance to the agency to ensure that the agency fulfill all the laws of the state of California, the merit principles, and their responsibility to the public and to one another. If the agency is headed in less than the correct direction, I would suspect and request that the board review their role and to provide guidance to bring the ship back on course if it's being led astray or on an improper course. I think that's your role and responsibility for each and every one of you. Each and every one of you are lawyers and judges and have a duty to the agency and the state and the citizens to fulfill that role. If there's errors that have been made, they should be corrected. That's your job. I think it is the board's responsibility to take a leadership, and the board should lead the agency, not the administrators leading the board. As so often happens, the regulators are more influenced by those they're supposed to regulate. And in a similar fashion, I hope the board recognizes they are supposed to regulate the agency, not the staff to regulate the board. I hope you are successful in your job and your role, and take it to heart. You have individual and collective responsibilities, and you will be looked upon to see how you're doing and that you are meeting those roles. Good luck.
If those are your comments, then we could conclude, and I think we've reached the time limit, so we can move on to the rest of the meeting. Thank you very much for your comments. So with that, we'll go to item number 6 on our agenda, which is report by Executive Director Chief Judge Michael Kutry, and this is the time for the board members to ask their questions. So I'll begin with Member Eng on my left here as to whether you have any questions.
Is he going to give us the report first, or do you want to ask the questions first?
Well, I'm sorry, Judge Kutry, why don't you make your report, then we'll ask our questions.
Happy to. Thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair Allen. Good afternoon, board members. Today we're reporting from the San Diego Office of Appeals. CIO Willoughby and I are supporting the CAMS rollout here. The judges are hearing their first cases in CAMS today. Happy to report all is going well. It's being enthusiastically received. This does not happen without a huge amount of effort on the front end. For the past 3 weeks, the CAMS experts have been training staff in San Diego in preparation for this week of hands-on training with the judges. They've done a simply amazing job bringing one of our largest field offices into the new system. Led by Assistant Chief Hugh Harrison, it's been a pleasure to watch their attentive and thorough instruction, and the San Diego office has, as I indicated, embraced the changes enthusiastically. I'm very excited to be back on track with CAMS rollouts and to move on to our next offices shortly. CIO Willoughby will give you a little bit of more detail about that during his report. As Member Kent Monning mentioned, thanks to all of our efforts in the field in recruiting, training, and hearing increased caseloads, they issued over 32,000 decisions in February despite the short month. It was an increase of over 4,000 decisions compared to the month prior. Fortunately, at the same time, incoming monthly appeals are finally on the decline again. We're at about 33% over pre-pandemic levels compared to 77% in December and up to 279% at times in early 2021. As a result, our open inventory of cases dropped by almost 5,000 cases in February, a significant benchmark and a result of huge effort by judges and staff. Despite all of those dispositions being obtained, our appeal age went up 6 days to 140.2 days. As we are finally positioned to close many more cases than we're receiving each month, we do expect that number to start falling in coming months. We still compare very favorably to the last reported national average of 237 days. And that does appear to still be growing. So I'll have further reports on that as they update their data. We always take an opportunity at these meetings to ask how we are doing in responding to the challenges that we face. And so I'll summarize some of those efforts for you. We continue to calendar our cases first in, first out to the best of our ability to afford hearings to those parties who have been waiting the longest. With improving public health conditions, we have reopened our lobbies to assist parties with their appeal questions. To bolster our smaller offices, 24 new ALJs were hired from the last recruitment, most of whom are hearing cases in our field offices right now. Additional recruitments for our smaller offices are still underway. Applications are being received, and we expect to begin interviews in April. And once those hires are made, the 16th ALJ training cohort will be scheduled, led again by supervising ALJ Katrina Morrison in the San Diego Office of Appeals. And she's also assisted by many veteran ALJ presenters and mentors, including supervising ALJ Rebecca Bach at the Pellet Operations. Chief Silva is going to give you a report on the tracked COVID cases at CUIAB since the last meeting. But operationally, I'm happy to report that we have not had any office closures since then that impacted our operations in that way. One of the final items in my report is an item that we've discussed several times together as a group over the last year plus, and that is our regulation change proposal that we made to Office of Administrative Law. And I hope to finally put some finality to it today. As the board will recall, we went through an extensive process of revising our regulations. We updated the board several times and obtained permission to move forward, the last being on November 10th, 2022. In that meeting, the board approved advancing our final regulations after some technical comments by the Office of Administrative Law. On February 3, the Office of Administrative Law advised us of our final approval of our regulation submission, and our regulation changes will go into effect on April 1st. Without going into all of the details of those changes, because we've done that many times as a group, I would like to thank the board for modernizing our regulations and to reflect the flexibility that the pandemic has showed us that we need in order to serve Californians in times of emergency. So thank you. I do not have any security events to report, but I am happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you. With that, I'll turn it over to Member Eng. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the opportunity. First of all, Chief Guthrie and Chief Willoughby, commend both of you for being in San Diego. The completion of CAMS in San Diego, our largest office, will be an amazing milestone. I know that normally you would love to be here, but that you are willing to go everywhere and do anything to complete CAMS. So on that point, when do you see the completion on the horizon of CAMS throughout the entire, all of our field offices as a rough projection?
Well, each time we roll out CAMS, it goes a little bit better and better in terms of our instruction to our staff and judges. This was no exception. This was smoother than the last one that I attended. So we still are very optimistic that we can finish this all by the end of the calendar year, hopefully earlier than later in the calendar year, but we're still on track to do that. So we're hoping that by the end of 2023, we'll all be in CAMS and our legacy system will be a thing of the past.
Okay, thank you. I hope to be there for that celebration. Can I ask another I have a
course,
final
of
question.
course.
I recently attended a town hall of stakeholders in my area, which was attended by economists, and the economists seemed to agree that California will be facing a recession toward the end of the year, if not the beginning of next year. Just wanted to know, is there any type of strategic thinking that we're planning in the event of a recession? I know that Chair Allen was here the last time and told about the volume of cases. So I'm just wondering, is that something that's that we're thinking about, planning for, or talking about?
We've been operating under maximum capacity and growth for almost 3 years. And since we're still on that path, I think that we'll be as well prepared for an economic event as we could be. I think the common anticipation is that it will be a much less dramatic event than the shutdowns brought us in 2020. So assuming that's true, I think we'll be well positioned since we're still on a path to growth until that event. So I think that's the best we can do given what we know now.
All right. Thank you. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Member Kent Monning, questions?
Thank you. No questions, but a couple comments. Just thanking you both for making the trip down. Well, Jefferson making the trip down to San Diego, Chief Kutry staying in San Diego for the rollout of CAMs there. It is huge and exciting to be back on that track to roll out CAMs throughout the rest of the agency. I've been fortunate to see some amazing things that CAMs can do for us as far as data and reports, and it is really exciting to see just how much more information we will have statewide, agency-wide, once the whole system is up on CAMs. So kudos to everyone there, and that is very exciting. And then I just wanted to thank everyone who worked on the regs package. I know that is a lot of line-by-line tedious work, and it's nice to get that update and see that we are to the finish line. So thanks to everyone who worked on that.
Thank you, Member Monning. Kent Monning. So, Member Wachowski?
No questions. You know, in my family, we just never refer to a trip to San Diego as a hardship. No, I'm in a different job now.
So, Judge Kutry, one thing I wanted to mention for my board members and for the staff of the agency and for the public is what a great job you've done over the last few weeks of trying to get me up to speed with everything that I need to know regarding being the chair for the time being of the agency, and really going into great detail about any questions I have, and it's really appreciated. I was kind of wondering why didn't I ask for your report, and I thought about it. It's because you've been so good about telling me what's been going on this last couple of weeks, and it's very appreciated. And so I just think it's important for the board members and the public and the staff to know that you're keeping me well apprised of all developments in real time, and I appreciate it. Having said that, why don't we move on to our supervising ALJ of Appellate Operations, Rebecca Bach.
Okay. Good afternoon, and today my report, I'm going to go over some of the numbers from the Department of Labor guidelines and what we are actually doing. So, to meet the Department of Labor guidelines, we're to close 50% of our cases for second level review within 45 days. We, for the month of February, closed 47.9% of our cases within 45 days, so very good. And that brings our year total up to 41.4. It's very strong in this climate, I might add. All right, and we are to close 80% of our cases within 75 days. We did 79% of our cases in February, and that brings our year end total to 90.5. So, pretty proud of that number. And finally, the other number we look at is case aging. The Department of Labor standard is to have a case aging of 40 days. At the end of February, we were at 43 days, just slightly over that. I anticipate that number coming down a bit, though, so I think that will be a pleasant surprise for next month's meeting. And that's my report, but I'd be happy to take any questions.
Oh, thank you so much. So, Member Ng, any comments, questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Judge Bach, thank you again for the almost instantaneous assistance. Sometimes when we're in the middle of a case, we really want to know about that case before we move on to the next case. And having you respond is like having our own in-house LexisNexis or Westlaw, and greatly appreciated. I know that more ALJs are using I see their names on our CAM decisions. At what point do you think that all of the AOs will be handling CAM's cases, or has that already occurred?
No, not all the ALJs are handling CAMS cases yet. We have 2 that are not in CAMS that are full-time ALJs, and then we have some cross-training and loan people, as you're aware of, that aren't in CAMS at all. So I anticipate, well, obviously, once all the field offices are in CAMS, we'll for sure be completely in CAMS as well, right? But I anticipate bringing another person in April, and so I think by May or June, all the ALJs that work permanently in AO will be trained in CAMS.
Okay, and if, again, I could express, and if you could pass on my personal appreciation to the AOs especially, and of course everyone on your team, but especially for the AOs that are still doing the legacy cases and transitioning on to CAMS simultaneously, that their work is greatly appreciated. Because I know the challenges that we face navigating through the new system is probably infinitesimally small compared to the challenges they have had. So if you can express my appreciation to them again. No further questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So Member Kent Monning, questions, comments?
Thank you, and thank you, Judge Bach, for your report. And I just am reminding myself that our reporting time frame of 12 months, is it through the month of March or through the month of April?
Through March. So
Through
March
March, okay.
31st is
Right.
our last day of the year.
Okay, great. So next month we will see where things land. And I think I recall looking recently at January's case aging for AO was up at 47 or 48 days or something. So it does seem like we're positively trending with our case aging numbers going down, and hopeful that that will continue into next month. So thanks for all you're doing to navigate balancing everyone's workloads and everything like that. And it's nice to see that we're on the right trajectory. So thank you. Further questions?
Member Wachowski, questions, comments?
No questions. No comment.
All right, we'll move on then. So for the next report, we have our information experts, security expert and information services head, Jefferson Willoughby. And I will see if there's any questions we have from the board. And I'll start again with Member Ang.
Again, Jefferson, Chief Willoughby, thank you again for your work in CAMS.
Hold on 1 second. My apologies. If you have a report, you should give it. So if you have a report, then we'll do the questions.
Okay.
Great. Well, good afternoon, Vice Chair Allen, members of the board. As mentioned, I'm reporting today from San Diego in support of the reignited CAMS rollout. I've happily observed Assistant Chief Hugh Harrison deliver some really comprehensive ALJ training over the past couple of days to more than 20 judges. And the first CAMS hearings are underway as we speak for that staff. I've had the opportunity to meet staff here in San Diego, and they are excited to work in the new system. As you know, we've been grappling with 2 really major and fundamental issues in CAMS as we've gone through the office rollout. And I'm really pleased to report that today we have implemented fixes that have allowed us to get here and introduce CAMS to this office. And it so far remains steady. So as we enter the next phase of rollouts within the state, I'm very optimistic. However, that doesn't mean there's not still work to do. So in order to further improve CAMS, we're conferring with our partners, really, the Department of Technology, They have a stabilization service. And one of the things that they focus on there is scalability as a priority. So this engagement that we're working with them on now is designed to improve the long-term stability of the system. And CDT has already delivered a preliminary assessment containing some very specific observations and goals as we move forward. So our path over the next year is going to be to leverage that engagement with the Department of Technology to improve the system's usability, including language access, commit to better performance and resiliency of the system, solidify process flows, and ensure that what we do is secure, stable, and scalable in the long term. So I'll be providing updates as we work through this process with the Department of Technology, and really do want to once again thank everyone who's been involved in the rollout for their support and engagement. During our last board meeting, Member Eng had questions about how do we get feedback from portal users, our public portal users. And we do have a comment, observation, and question option going live on the My Appeal frequently asked questions page tomorrow. So you'll be able to go and look at that. And if you have any comments on the public portal, we'll happily triage those. The executive staff are going to be collating those and putting them into a set of observations that we can improve the survey instrument with over time. So in closing, we recognize that there's a tremendous amount of work, and I think everyone is in recognition of that. And I remain confident that this system is going to serve us well into the future. So I'm happy to take any questions you have.
Thank you, Jefferson. I'll turn it over to Member Eng now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, Jefferson, thank you. Appreciate your can-do willingness to go anywhere and do anything for CAMS, and you being there right now reflects that. During my tenure here on the board, there have been two significant things that have really gone through transformative process, and that was going through our COVID cases, and of course, the second one being CAMS. And considering that we're doing them both at the same time, it's a huge achievement. Thank you for following up on the issue of the public information. As you know, many of us have been part of transitions through new software programs, and one of the important things is to get it right, and especially from the point of view of the consumers. And so what you're doing is greatly appreciated. If I could ask a follow-up, that when those questions are responded to, periodically you could summarize them and let the board know what the response has been. I did have a question that was following up on an earlier question by Member Kent Monning earlier about the language access, which I think this board and CUIAB has made as a mission to make sure that those that speak English as a second language are afforded the same due process as everyone else. And so I guess my question would be rather a broad question, which is, at what point do you think that the language access ability for non-English speakers in the CAMS system will be similar to or greater in improvement than the current legacy system in terms of documents, the number of documents, the quantity of documents, the quality of documents, the type of documents?
So for the two languages currently supported in the legacy system, that parity is fairly well upon us. For the additional languages, that will be part of the improvement set that we work on with the Department of Technology, and that it ends up looking a lot like a major project where every element is prioritized based on its risk of really impairing the system. And obviously language access is one of the things that we must do. We do certainly want to make sure that our calendar scheduling, for instance, is rock solid as well. Otherwise the system itself fails. So that'll be part of a larger scoping that we'll be getting into with CDT here in the coming very few weeks. And I guess my answer is I can better block out that timeline for you once we look at the whole and then start to, within the context of the timeline that we have, take care of the really big rocks that are out there.
Yeah, thank you, Jefferson. That would be greatly appreciated. It would keep us apprised of progress and I know the intentionality is there. I have no further questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Member Chetwani, questions, comments?
Thank you. Just a couple brief comments. Thank you for the detailed report, Chief Willoughby. I think it's wonderful to hear the support and engagement that we'll be getting from the Department of Technology. I know our IT staff has worked tirelessly for the last couple of years. So to get to the point where we have the product that we're using and then to get this partnership where we get additional person hours, resources to make it what we need is hopefully music to everyone's ears. And I think it's the right time for it. And I appreciate receiving updates about how that is all happening and playing out. But that's wonderful news. And then I'm excited to hear about from Member Eng's request that there's already been built the comments and observations on my appeal. I appreciate how quickly you all have done that. I think it's great to get that feedback as soon as we're able to, launching this new My Appeal portal. And I will check it out again and see how that seems. But thanks to everyone who made that happen so quickly after Member Eng asked about it. It's impressive how much quick response there is to the requests that the board members make, and it's much appreciated. So thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Member Wachowski.
Yes.
Questions, comments?
Chief Willoughby, I have the FO cycle time summary report here, and it just as the case is created to the time where the decision is mailed, and we break it down into different time periods. And it seems to me that whether it's just the UI time lapse or the overall cases, the scheduled date to the hearing date or the hearing date to the mailing date is more or less consistent throughout the system. Where we have the wild differences is between the verification date to the scheduled date, or then the case creation date to the verification dates. Those are where all these different offices have really different discrepancies between, or the differences between a time. With the CAM system going in, does that flatten out any of that difference between, let's say, the verification date and the schedule date? Does that make it easier so that those numbers sort of shrink or become more consistent throughout all the different offices that we have?
I'd love to tell you all about my in the field office expertise, but I don't have any when it comes to what it takes to verify. I'll defer to Chief Kutri on that one.
Yeah, if I may take that one. That is one of the primary goals of this system, is that once all of the offices are in CAMS, we can move work. So we can examine those timelines and say, would it be faster to move this case to another office that has better capacity? And we can do that based on any of those intervals that you're looking at in that report. So the easiest way to apply that would be, we have cases that are verified and ready to go in one office, and we have another office that has a shorter wait time. We can move those cases electronically in CAMS with a push of a button. Whereas now we do that analysis and we have to move cases manually, which means compiling them, inventorying them, and then mailing them, which obviously is not a preferred method. So the efficiency of CAMS is that you can move work very, very rapidly from office to office and hopefully shrink those numbers in real time.
And I will also add that it's anecdotal, but what I'm hearing is that actual processing time to do it in CAMS, once learned, is fairly fast.
We believe that we'll be able to move hundreds, if not thousands, of cases overnight digitally.
And that's once the verification date is achieved, or getting to that verified date, and at the beginning of the case when things get assembled.
We can even do it before the case is verified. So right now we're receiving our appeals overnight from EDD in a batch process that's paperless. And so if we have an office that has fewer staff that are able to verify a case, we could simply move that case when it's received to an office that has more resource there. And as a result of the pandemic and longer term geographic trends, many of our offices are having difficulty recruiting certain classifications. And so having the ability to move a case at any stage of its life cycle, and maybe even move it back, depending on the office's capacity, would be a huge boon for us. Obviously, we wish we would have had this 3 years ago, but we didn't. So we're building it as fast as we can now.
Thank you. That's all.
Yeah, before we move to the next part of our agenda, I'd just like to say that from my vantage point, I'm on my 11th year here on the board, that the IT director and the staff have really done a terrific job from my vantage point. And it leads me also to the thought that where this, and this comment is for the board members and for the public, and especially for the staff, is that this agency has basically been stress tested incredibly over the years. Incredibly stress tested. If this was a sports team, it would be called battle hardened because we've been through so much. And I just want the public to know and the staff that we're at a very high level of efficiency here and doing work because of everything that's been thrown our way. And so just from my heart, I just want to commend everybody, just thinking about it from my vantage point today as the chair, about what a great job this agency is doing. And as I've mentioned before, how proud I am of this agency. Having said that, I will give Mr. Silva the opportunity to make a report. So go ahead.
No report today, Don. Thank you, Vice Chair Allen, members of the board. Good afternoon. I'll start with a recruitment update. We did complete the last ALJ training cohort March 2nd. Had 6 new ALJs completing that. Since the onset of the pandemic and subsequent pandemic-related cases, we have done statewide administrative law judge recruitments for this 3-year period. What that has left us with in certain geographic areas is a lack of ALJ support, inability to hire in certain geographic areas. Also, some geographic areas have suffered through ALJ attrition. So with that, we've now released 4 new targeted ALJ recruitments. The intention with that is to hire 2 ALJs in the Oxnard, Fresno, and San Jose offices of appeals, as well as 4 ALJs in the Bay Area Office of Appeals. Final filing dates for those fall between March 28th and April 5th. And we should, perhaps as early as this week, release 2 additional ALJ recruitments to try to secure 2 more judges for our Orange County office and 4 additional for the Sacramento office here. Since the last board meeting, we did have somewhat of a paltry support staff hiring phase where we hired 1 in the last 4 weeks in Inglewood. But several are going through interviews right now, and we currently have 18 support recruitments pending in 5 different classes and 10 different field office locations. Report on COVID-19. I guess this is never going to go away. For the 3-month period, CUIAB employees reporting positive COVID-19 cases had been trending downward, with only 9 being reported at the last board meeting for the preceding 4-week period. Unfortunately, that trend has changed, and we have had 16 positive cases reported over the last 4 weeks. Being that this has been going on for about 3 years now, we now have several employees reporting their second and sometimes third time contracting the COVID-19 virus. Even with this recent increase, we have, as Chief Kutry mentioned, been able to avoid office closures, and we continue to be on top of all of our reporting and employee communications responsibilities. Quick purchasing update. Late February, we consolidated all of our cost centers operating expenses budget requests for the upcoming 23-24 state fiscal year. We were able to identify and approve just under $50,000 worth of requests to replace older and dilapidated furniture throughout field operations, and we were able to move forward and bring those into the current budget fiscal cycle due to savings realized in other operating expenses categories in the current fiscal year. So we'll be processing those purchase orders over the next 3 weeks as the deadline to purchase is April 19th for the current fiscal year. And lastly, earlier this month, we began discussions with the Employment Development Department's Program Estimates Group regarding our workload projections for the 23-24 state fiscal year as we prep for the governor's May budget revision. It's too premature to report specifics because nothing is finalized at this point. But both of our departments are in agreement that our workload output for the 2023-24 is projecting to be at the very least on par with current budget, our current workload output, particularly with the recently hired ALJs, the additional planned hired ALJs, as well as kind of the looming threat of recession that Member Ng mentioned. So with that, for now, it looks like there will not be any significant negative impact to our budget allocations for the coming fiscal year. That will be part of the May revise, but more to come as we get closer to that period of time. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Member Ng, questions, comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, thank you, Chief Silva. You answered the question I had, which was, as we're nearing the May revise, as you know, the numbers are probably being crunched right now. I just wanted to know what the impact was, number one, and number two, whether we are doing any kind of strategic thinking for the possibility of possible recession, either loss of income or additional cases. But I don't think that we can project anything once we've gone through the COVID cases. It's realistic that we're certainly able to increase our ability to review and adjudicate those cases. So I think we have a track record. So thank you for your report. Nothing further.
Thank you. Member Kemp Monning, questions, comments?
Thank you, Chief Silva. I have one question that might be something for next month, I suppose, but with trends of COVID cases going up, are we able to pivot and have people continue working from home unless they're, too sick to work or something? But I'm just wondering about if this is something that we're continuing to live with and trying to make sure people might not have time to take off, right? So I don't know if there's anything that you all are seeing with that about with people continuing to work or taking the time off and how much is needed for staff to manage that at this point.
No, I understand the question, and with no more supplemental paid sick leave available
Right.
for folks, this is a big issue. And there are some classifications in our field operations offices that just don't have the ability to telework because of
Right.
the need to have them in the office. But for those that are, in recent months, with the lack of that extra leave covered, the legal support supervisors have pivoted to allow them to kind of tweak they're already sometimes in the office, sometimes not, and to kind of stagger that schedule to accommodate them to be able to telework if they're well enough to do so.
Okay, great. So if people have the desire to work, we're doing where we can, what we can to make that happen. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Yes.
No questions.
So I do have a question. So I know the state has changed their COVID protocols. I know they've done that. Did we just follow suit and change our protocols the way the state did, or did we do something different?
We followed the protocols.
Okay.
Yes. And there really, as it impacts us, there weren't a tremendous amount of changes. One fairly significant change I mentioned either last or the previous board meeting was that the definition for close contact has changed. What it distills down to is basically if you're in a certain cubic foot area with someone over a 24-hour period, you are considered a close contact. It used to be where if you were within 6 feet of them for a cumulative total of 15 minutes, you were close contact. So now, essentially, technically, everybody who is in the office when someone has COVID-19, they are considered a close contact. And so all our information to employees has changed to let them know that testing is available at no cost to them. Testing is available on state time if they so desire. That's the biggest change from the recent COVID changes statewide.
Thank you. I'll now turn to our board counsel, and I don't know if there's any report, but usually the standard questions to ask is, do we have any closed session items today?
Thank you, Chair Allen. There's no closed session today.
Okay. Well, having said that, that clock has not been changed, so we're actually stopping the meeting 15 minutes before 1, before we even began. So, so how's that for efficiency? With that, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you.